Yep, my name is Annie Mahon, and this is the Circle Yoga Cooperative. And my job right now is just as a board member. I used to be the director. I was the director of this organization for about 12 years, I think. And then the last 4 to 5 years, I have not been the director. I've just been on the board. So we founded, the business itself was founded in 2003. And because I really didn't know anything about co-ops, I just created it as an LLC. So I was the sole owner, the sole proprietor. And in about 2012, my daughter Hannah, who is a very progressive, very smart, wise woman, she and I were talking about capitalism. And we were talking about the structure of corporations and the issues that come along with that, and how could we shift that in the world. And I said, yeah, but I don't know, what can I even do about that? And she said, what about a cooperative? And I thought, well, that's a great idea. Like, let me look into that. And so I looked into cooperatives, and I found out that I could make this LLC into a cooperative without too much trouble. Well, it seemed like not that much trouble then. It became more challenging later. But so I just decided then and there just to do that, because it was so much in alignment with my principles that I already had about cooperative decision making and cooperative governance, and really a strong feeling I have about ownership of things like a yoga studio. Like, how could I own it? Like, what did I really even own? So I decided to go ahead and do that. And I wish now I had included everyone on the team in the decision to do it. But at the time it was an LLC, and I was just like, I'm going to do it. And so that's what we've been doing since then. We've been a cooperative. Well, we have then and now, it's about the same size. We have about, I want to say, 35 teachers who are contractors, and we have about 15 part-time employees. And then we have upward of 800 students who come through every week. And so the way we structured our cooperative was to allow for student memberships, teacher memberships, and staff memberships. And so students can be members, and they pay a small fee to be a member, but they actually don't own the cooperative. They don't get to, well, we do have representation of students on our board, so they get to vote on matters, but they don't, in the end, if we were to shut down, they wouldn't receive any of the profits. So they're really like a different kind of member. Whereas the teachers and the staff, even though they're part-time and contractors, they actually are the owners of the business. Yeah, so our clientele, we mostly comes from within a 1-mile radius of this studio, but not entirely. So it's mostly just people who are looking for relaxation and yoga and that kind of thing. And I don't think any students have thought that cooperative was a bad idea. I think everybody really loves that idea. And some people might come here because it's a cooperative, because they feel like that's really neat, it's a cooperative. And they know that we're actually a cooperative. Like, there are people who put the name cooperative on their business, but that aren't really cooperative, which when we were first looking at becoming a cooperative, we were like, well, I wonder who else is a cooperative. And so I just did, Google searches, and I found there are places. And when I contacted them, they're like, oh, yeah, we're not really a cooperative. We just, we just do things cooperatively. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Right, with my daughter having that conversation, and then really, it's something that I've always been interested in, is this idea of like ownership and who owns something like the people who come to this studio, or how can you even own that? I can sort of understand how you could own a piece of property, even though that is a big question mark for me too. But really owning a business like this, it just seemed kind of counterintuitive and kind of counter to the principles of yoga and meditation. We really talk a lot about community and really having a kind of sense of community. And I think when you run a business as a sole owner, doesn't feel like a community in the same way that it does once you are a cooperative. Because even if you ask people their input, you're still kind of the boss of everything. And even when you're making decisions somewhat cooperatively, they still know that in the end you own it. And so when it's really shared and when everyone knows, oh, actually I own a piece of this and I'm getting profits when we do well, it shifts sort of the way people think. And so for me, that's what I really was longing for, is that kind of real community where we're all working together for something. Very much an ethical choice. Very much a choice about like what's right. Not just what's right, but really what is it that I want, what we want, or I want, what is it that I'm really wanting in this business. When I opened the doors in 2003, I was already a practitioner of mindfulness. And when I opened the doors, I said, I want this business to be a mindful business. Like everything about it, I want us to do mindfully and with presence and compassion. And so when I started thinking about a cooperative, I was like, yeah, that's exactly in alignment with those values. So that's really why it was a no-brainer for me. We have thought a little bit about that, but we really like what we have going here. We don't really have any thoughts to expand to other places. Yeah, so as I was saying that, it's a bit of a challenge. So I reached out to my nonprofit lawyer who I have done a lot of work with, and she said, this is great, but I don't know how to set up a cooperative. So she gave me the name of a lawyer who was out in California. And so I worked with her by phone, and we decided to set up the cooperative as a partnership in Minnesota, because Minnesota seems to be a state that has a lot of experience with cooperatives and has a lot more structures in place. So we set it up as a partnership in Minnesota and wrote our bylaws based on that. And we all kind of worked together on the bylaws, and then we went and we shifted to cooperative. So over time, we found that there are some limitations of that form. And so working with the Federation of Cooperatives, we found people who can help us figure out the best form for us. And so subsequently, we've shifted from being a partnership to being a corporation. So we're a cooperative corporation, still out of Minnesota, but now we have a slightly different structure so that we can start to keep a reserve and do some things that we couldn't do with the other structure. But what's been really the most beneficial is this Federation of Cooperatives, the U.S. Federation of Cooperatives, I think is what it's called. And they've been able to bring us professionals who can help us with the things we need to be able to do. Because no one here at this yoga studio has any idea how to do any of that stuff. But there are people right out there, and they're very happy to support us. Some people we've had to pay for their time, and some people have helped us for free. Oh, and can I just add also that now within DC, we're in Washington, D.C., and there's a movement afoot on cooperatives, and so there are more and more people doing this work. And I was at the Day for Cooperatives last weekend, and there were lawyers and other technical people who were offering free assistance and giving out their cards, and the whole day was free, and you could learn how to start a cooperative. So I'm sure in other cities have that as well. So it's just a matter of finding it. Mm-hmm. We have our teachers are why am I forgetting the word for that? They're contractors. So teachers are contractors because they just come and go and they can teach other places. Then we have the staff that is made up of some people who just work at the front desk, and some people who are in management. So we have a small management team. There's about 6 people on the management team, and that team meets every week and tries to make decisions cooperatively. Everyone who's a member gets to vote, and we have on the board we elect 2 student members, 2 teacher members, 2 desk members, and then there are I think 2 or 3 more positions that could be anybody. So the idea is that whatever profits we make get given back to teachers and staff based on how many hours they work. So, those who work more are getting a larger percentage. We don't make a lot of money, and right now we're trying to build a reserve, so we're not giving a lot of money back each year. But the money that's in the reserve, should we ever close down, would then go back to the membership based on how many hours they work. Well, there's a couple of big challenges that we faced. One is the resistance to power, giving up power. And not that anybody was like, I really want to make decisions, but people are more just like, this is taking too long. I want to, streamline. They want efficiency. And group decision making isn't as efficient. Having a regular board meeting, having all that input and all of that, it takes longer. It's much better, and I think everyone is way more invested and way more feeling like it's a community and feeling like they're part of it. But it does take longer. So that's probably sort of internal selling of the cooperative is a big part of what I think anyone who starts a cooperative has to be able to do. And I wasn't the best at that. Like, I should have spent more time selling it internally. So it's taken longer. But now I think everyone's committed to it. The other thing that's been challenging is that because I was a sole proprietor in the beginning and because I invested money in the business, that money has been tricky to figure out technically. So that's just like a technical issue, is like, well, I don't want anyone who was in the cooperative to have that liability. It's my liability. So how can we've had to set it up really carefully so that nobody else has liability for what I invested. Oh, definitely. I think people who are student members feel way more committed. Like, they're not going to go to another yoga studio. This is their studio. They're a member. They vote. And then we've had the great fortune of having people who want to be on the board, students who've wanted to be on the board, even with teachers and staff who've wanted to be on the board. I mean, they really feel like they're part of the family, the cooperative family, and they feel they're going to be out there talking us up and telling people about our structure and telling people how great we are because they're really, really part of it. It's different. Well, I can say the best part of founding a co-op is that I feel like really I'm demonstrating something that people don't see everywhere that is really different than a corporation, than a regular corporation, that people can see. I mean, that is really one of the main reasons I did this, was because I wanted people to see that a cooperative is something that you can do, that anyone can just do, that you could take your small business and make it a cooperative, that it's not impossible. Because when I first heard of it, I was like, oh, wow, that's going to be really hard. But it's really not that hard. And it really is important. And I think the more we get the ball rolling with cooperatives, the more there'll be. People will be like, oh, that won't be too hard. I'll do it too. So that's, for me, a big benefit. And for a member, the big benefit, I think, I don't know if you've seen this, but for me, I teach a lot of mindfulness and I've taught yoga in the past. What I find is that everyone everywhere is looking for community. Everyone is looking for that kind of community where they matter and they have real connections with people and they're doing good work together. And that's what a cooperative is. People coming together to do good work together, and people feel great about that. People who are on the board and helping to make decisions about bringing really interesting and healing work to other people, they feel great about that. So I think that, if you were at a regular top-down company, you never get that feeling. Yes. Well, you feel like you belong. You feel like you're doing something good, or you're really contributing to something positive. And that's really what all of us want, right? That's what makes us happy, is to feel like we're contributing. I think that is the basic need of human beings, to feel like we're contributing. Well, keep going. We have this new space. So we're going to have a larger studio space. We'll have larger meditation groups, larger classes. We are actually now doing a scholarship fundraising that we've been doing, so we can offer more scholarships to people. We have been offering scholarships in the past, but we really want to expand that so that we can bring in more people who can't afford to come normally. We really would like to diversify in that way, so that so it's not just the people who can afford to come that are here, that it's not kind of homogeneous. We really would like it to be more inclusive for everybody, especially financially. All they have to do is sign up online, and they pay I think it's $20 they pay, and then they're a member. And then we have every September we have the annual meeting where we meet with anyone who wants to come who's a member. And then we have, at that time, we also have voting. So they can either vote in person at the annual meeting or they vote online. Most people vote online because it's easier. And then we have the new members or the new directors that come and join the board. I think I'm not involved in that anymore since I'm not the director, but it's done through the management team, hiring new staff. That doesn't usually go through the board, but as I said, we're changing things now. Now, like the salaries is going through the board and stuff, and so if we were hiring new management, it would go through the board, but we haven't hired a new person in, I want to say 8 years for the management because everyone loves it here. And we have a lot of teachers who want to teach here, but it's hard because we already have a lot of great teachers. We've had teachers who have been here from the day I opened. The first people who came to class here, my first class I taught, they came to class with their children. They teach here now. Pretty much, it's hard I can't think of anyone who's ever quit unless they moved away. Not a lot. I just went to that co-op day, and I do know Tight Shift, which is Juan Reed who founded that, and it's a returning citizens. It's for cleaning and landscaping, and it's an awesome co-op. So I've met him and talked to him a little bit, and I went to this co-op day, and I met some other people doing some things there, but there aren't that many that I know of. And the one I mentioned to you that I'd like to meet them, I'd actually like to hire that cooperative too because it's cooperative. So I haven't really met that many other people doing cooperatives. Oh, I already am, 100%. I always want to do business with cooperatives because I believe in the model and I think it's the future. So. We are members of the Federation of Cooperatives, and as I said, they've been really helpful. And then I went to this cooperative day, which is the DC Co-op stakeholders, and so that was really interesting. I'm also part of the philanthropy in this city, and I've been part of a program through something in the Bay Area that's called Justice Funders, and so we were just up in Boston, and I got to see a land cooperative that they have there, and the neighborhood, it's a neighborhood land cooperative that's been around for 45 years, and they own, I don't even know, hundreds of acres, and they own all the buildings there on them, but they can sell them to people, but they own the land, and then everything that happens there is decided democratically. It's a beautiful model, and so I've been learning through different avenues about other cooperatives that are doing really cool work, and that it's inspiring for me too. And I'm interested in DC, there are a couple of land trusts that are getting started. And so I'm interested in learning more about that too. Yeah, I had no idea either. So don't fret if you don't have any idea about how to do a cooperative. You can find most of the information online, and you can find people who can help you, and there are definitely people who can help you for free. And you can I did an online class a couple weeks ago, someone offered in this area. So there's a lot of free resources for this, and so yeah, I had no idea either, and I was able to do it. So you definitely can do it. It's not as hard as it seems.